Hey guys, Aura here. Welcome to the start of our Zero to Hero YouTube series. We will be looking at our logs every week, every Tuesday. So after the raiding week has commenced, then any optional raids may happen, where we will be taking what we've done well and what we've done badly over the course of the week, making a little bit of a video of it to talk about it, and then we will be looking to implement it for the reset to tomorrow and the following raid week. So, for starters, my guild private logs, it's heroic difficulty upwards. So I will not be direct showing the heroic logs on stream or in these videos. However, what I can show you a little bit of are my normal kills, just as background footage while we quickly go over the various kills and the bits and pieces that I need to work at going forward this following week. So we will swap to the main screen just so you can see my normal kills. A few of these weren't logged. The individual that was logging for this evening wasn't present for a few of the kills because they were swapping and forgot to reset and sort things. But apologies, but you can see the general gist. So a lot of the performance that evening was purple, and I got some very high logs for the 9, Remnant of Nezul, and Soul Render. Now, those 3 particular high logs, I was very lucky in that they are, for the most part, very standstill and static fights, which immediately raises a concern, because looking at Sylvanas Windrunner, where there's a lot of running around, highlights my struggle and inability to fully maximize my uptime. So, big thing going forward for next week. We will be looking at maximizing our uptime and improving our positioning. We are going to also, for some bosses, such as Eye of the Jailer, we're going to be looking at reducing the amount of AoE damage we are trying to put out. Because comparing my logs to that of other Retribution Paladins that are logging publicly, my Templar's Verdict cast for the same duration fight is rather low. I am spending far too much holy power divine storming when I shouldn't be. I should very much focus on pumping the damage into the boss. One of the top item level logs for Retribution Paladin, the individual has done over 400,000 more damage to the boss than I have. Now, I've only done about an extra 300,000 damage to the ads that spawn, which isn't really a good trade-off. I'm still losing 100,000 damage compared to this guy. So, rotational priority and focusing on single target is the go-to. Now, the 9 Remnant and Soul Render Doors-main, again, pretty much just rotational awareness, not pressing the wrong button at the wrong time. I have a habit of missing Crusader strikes here or there, which means I'm actually losing holy power throughout the course of the fight. And that is something I need to work on, because although the logs for those 3 bosses are relatively good, being high blues, low purples, high 70s, low 80s, we're still looking at needing to up those somewhat. So for those 3 bosses, the 9, Remnant and Soul Render, we will be further looking at maximizing our holy power generation and trying to minimize the amount of time we are away from the boss so that we can spend the holy power exactly when we need to. Painsmith and Guardian were pretty good fights this week. Still a lot of problems, primarily in positioning and being hit unnecessarily. I got stunned a few times in the Painsmith encounter by not dodging the spikes at the right time. and I was holding my AoE cooldown, Reckoning, Execution Sentence, and Wake for when the balls were spawning during Painsmith unnecessarily. I should have just focused on getting as much damage into the boss as possible, so the moment they come off cooldown, go again. The reason for this is I ended up holding and could have fit in probably another Reckoning and Execution Sentence before the boss died. But I held off because I was trying to get the right timing. Now, in some situations, holding as a Ret Paladin is good because you can get the most benefit out of it. However, due to the nature of our raid team, my burst DPS is not required on those balls anymore. Might be required for Mythic, but as of progressing Heroic, it's not. So, running theme here. I need to focus on single target damage and not necessarily funneling into AoE. Soul Render could be an exception if we had a Death Knight present. Because if we had a Death Knight and the ability to mass pull all the ads in, I could hold my cooldowns for that and be one of the few individuals of the raid designated to blow them up. Remnants of the Eternal Palace and Ashara, anyone. As for Fate Scribe, Kel'thuzad, and Sylvanas Windrunner, however, oh boy. Fate Scribe, I need to work on my situational awareness, for starters. There were several attempts during this week's raid where I was responsible for nearly cooking the raid. And I did at one point. I was assigned to a rune. I didn't see it. Or rather, I didn't think it was my ring that I was assigned to. I was assigned to orange, which I think was the 5th one out from the center. I thought it was the 4th one, so dived onto the 2nd to help blue get it round. This was in the final phase. And thankfully one of our warlocks at the time realized and did my rune for me, or at least tried to. I can't remember if we wiped because it didn't get there in time or because we took too much damage just afterwards. But either which way, it was on me. So for Fate Scribe specifically, I need to get a lot better at being able to tell which rune is which much quicker. So this week, that will be my goal. And if I can get that down and we get Fate Scribe done quickly, then the following week I will look to my DPS and we will look to where the best place to use our cooldowns will be. Whether it is better to focus purely on the single target or, depending on the guild's tactic, because we actually use our tanks to soak so we don't get lots of the small ads. If we decide we change tactic because we are approaching the mythic progression, then it may be a case of holding all our cooldowns and blowing up those small little ads. But we shall see. But as long as we keep to the tank soaking mechanic, Fate Scribe will probably always be a low DPS passing boss. Great for healers, bad for the DPS, because we don't have things to pad off. Kel'thuzad is an interesting one. Now, due to some inconsistencies with our DPS, sometimes I am kept up, and other times I am sent down into the Reliquary. If I'm sent down into the Reliquary, it's all pure single target DPS, and I don't really get to do much, which is fine, because the way Paladin's cooldowns work is we can Execution Sentence and Final Reckoning every time we go down. We can Reckoning while we're up, and we can Reckoning while we're down. And we wings every time we're up. However, during the intermission phase, if you get to stay upstairs and deal with the ads, you get a lot more DPS benefit out of Final Reckoning, Execution Sentence, and just generally blowing up the ads. We can do so much damage, in fact, that depending on where I'm placed, one team all of a sudden starts struggling a lot less with the DPS. That could also be because there's just a higher number of DPS going down, or it could be the nature of our burst. But the big part of Kel'thuzad is, again, positioning. I personally have this very, very nasty habit of trying to cover other people's failings for mechanics. So the tank ads that are spawned, and I've done this a couple of times, I've actually used both charges of Cavalier and Divine Steed to try and get to one of those tank mobs, to kick the cast, and then get back over to Kel'thuzad. I really shouldn't be doing that as a Retribution Paladin. If, going forward, I need to get out there to hit a kick, because one of the ranged can't do it, then I just need to stay there and I need to kill that target. That is then my goal. And that's something that I need to do. I can't go out, get the kick, and then come back, because that is time wasted where I could be DPSing. I could be generating holy power. I could be using holy power. And time wasted is detrimental when it comes to looking for logs. On to the big one, Sylvanas Windrunner. Now, my guild hasn't done Heroic Sylvanas yet. We are 9 out of 10 progress. So we're going to look at the normal Sylvanas Windrunner. And as you can see, my pass was 37 for a median. And even lower if I go to item level percentage. I grey passed, which is really not good. Now, sneaky little guild recruitment there. Now, looking at my paladin, you can see here that there were 7 Divine Storm casts. Really? If those Divine Storms weren't on the ads in the second phase, then I was doing something wrong. And thankfully, more Sworn Vanguard, more Sworn Soul Judge, more Sworn Heartbreaker, more Sworn Goliath, and Sylvanas Windrunner. So, thankfully, I was only using it when I was supposed to. Consecration. Sylvanas took 27k with 18 casts, so I was using that as part of my single target rotation. However, one big problem with Sylvanas is she is a very movement-heavy boss fight. So, the big takeaway from this, because you can see here that I also take unnecessary damage in places, and I actually die. I die just before the second Bloodlust comes out. Because my death, if I reset the zoom quickly, you can see my death here is to a Banshee Scream and a Wailing Arrow. Yeah. Wasn't great. So you've got the Wailing Arrow comes in 11 seconds. I get multiple healing 10 seconds later? Yeah, right. So you've got Wailing Arrow comes in. Condensed Animum's Feel heals me for nearly 2k. Then it's an Echo of Light, Leech, Echo of Light, Leech, 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 Wellspring. So I didn't get a direct heal. I'm just leeching the health back slowly. However, Banshee Scream then comes out, and I die. And I die because I believe I was stood next to somebody. So we weren't overlaid. Like we overlapped during Banshee Scream. So let's have a quick nosy. We'll just remove that. Play. So we'll go back slightly. And here you go. Dover comes back. We're stacked up. Scream's coming in. I'm still not being healed at this point. And then, yeah. I'm dead. Because if we scroll in and move down, We're back. Right. So you can see me moving around. I'm trying to steer clear of other people. I'm rather close to Ginyu at the moment. And we're kind of weaving around with Sylvanas in the middle. And the point I die coming up shortly. Because there goes the Wailing Arrows. Shadow Dagger. We dodge that. I dodge it. I'm fine. I'm still full health. First Wailing Arrow comes through. There's the second Wailing Arrow. Third Wailing Arrow. I still not taking any healing. I'm stood next to Sudeki. I'm in range of Udurpa, one of our healers. Time goes on, and I die. Now, if we go back just a fraction, we can see if I was stood on anyone. There. Illidarity. Illidarity and I stood on top of each other. Now, Illidarity, because he was pretty much at full health going into this, he didn't die. He had almost 50% more HP than I did. But as he fell rushed in or whatever, it then results in me dying. So we get too close and I die as the whale comes out. So for me, what I should have done positionally is I should have probably been stood over here with the range. I should try and steer clear of the demon hunters and the rogues and everyone else. I should have, rather than being greedy for the DPS, I should have moved out. Which then means that from this point onwards, I'm not doing anything. I'm not helping kill. And it then just becomes a matter of waiting. And it's a really bad time to die. Because it is just before the second Bloodlust. Because everyone does the jump over to the other platform because of Rays. Sylvanas then comes over herself. And Bloodlust is cast. So going into next week's Sylvanas kill, whether that be normal or heroic, we are going to need to be more situationally aware of those around us. And I think the big takeaway for this week, for keys at least, not keys, for raiding and for logs, will be to make sure that I do the mechanics first, and then focus on the single target DPS second. Now, I will try and publicly log the next normal that we do, to make sure that all the bosses are present, and we will use them as a baseline to see if I've improved. Because the way our raiding schedule works is we do heroic on the Wednesday currently, Friday raid is then a normal raid, and then Sunday is a hybrid between heroic and the mythic bosses, because we are currently 2 out of 10 mythic, and we are 78th on our realm for having killed the Eye of the Jailer. We had a couple pulls on the 9. That boss should go down next week, hopefully. Should be a good fight. But anyway, if any of you guys have any tips or tricks for me with terms of logs and log breakdowns, I would very much like to hear your thoughts. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a lovely day, and I wish you the very best in your reset chests. If you're Americans, I hope you got something good today, and for the rest of the world, tomorrow and Thursday, I wish you the very best of luck, and please comment, like, and subscribe below. And hell, if you want to come in here and let me know what you got, that'd be great. I'm more than happy to live vicariously through you all, because I think I've used up my luck for the tier. So, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care, folks.